Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show you a different example here. Let me take all of this stuff here and I'm going to hide it. Let me go to my outliner and I'm going to unhide the hanging cables example. So let's unhide that real quick. So you can see here's these sort of hanging cables. There's a set of 4 of them and they all kind of converge at a point at the beginning and the end. You can see how they hang down pretty naturally. This is great for placing on top of ceilings and things like that. Just adds more detail to your environment. So let me do this. Let me go to a front view over here and I'm going to go to the create tool and grab myself an EP curve tool. And I'm going to start to create some curves here, kind of follow the curvature of this type of object. Don't worry about being too precise. Just get the curve something like this looks pretty good. Okay, let me go back to a perspective view here. I no longer need this hanging curves example, so I'm going to hide that and I'm just going to keep out these curves right here. Alright, and what I'm also going to do is let me see about turning off the grid. Just kind of getting in the way, in my opinion. Now this curve starts from back here and goes all the way to the end. What I'm going to do is a little bit of a different technique, just to show you some different techniques you'll find pretty useful. I'm going to go to create NURBS primitives. I'm going to create a circle. I'm just going to create a circle like that. I'm going to take the circle and what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap it to this curve that's right here and place it at the beginning of the curve. I'm also going to rotate it about 90 degrees like this. Okay, so it's kind of facing down the curve. Another thing I want to do is I want to change the radius of it. I don't want it to be too big, so I'll make it pretty small. Something like this looks pretty good. I'm going to go to the NURBS circle parameters here. Right now it's got 8 sections, which I don't like. I'm going to make it 3 sections, and I'm also going to make it linear instead of cubic. So I get basically a triangle like this. Now let me go to like the right view, for example, over here. I want the flat side of the triangle to face upwards, okay? So what I'm going to do is, let me see, I'll probably just rotate this guy. So let me rotate it so that it's something like this. See that? And the flat side faces up. We want the triangle pointed edge to face downward because that's where the player is going to be looking at this from the ground level up to the ceiling, okay? Now it'll make sense in a moment why I'm doing that. Now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically select both of these curve objects, and I'm going to go to the, let me go to the surfaces menu, and you're going to find here surfaces menu. Let me instead go to, let me try extrude instead. Let me reset the settings, hit apply, there we go. Extrude works pretty good. So you can see that this extrudes out. Right now the mesh here doesn't follow the curve too well, but don't worry about that. We're going to fix that in a moment. In the extrude options, and if we look at this, one thing that I'm going to do, let me go to shading, backface culling's on, good. I want to make sure backface culling is in fact on. Let me go to the extrude options over here. Under extrude type, I don't want it to be a tube. Let's go with flat, and when I do that, it's automatically going to follow the curve perfectly, okay? And you can see that the normals are flipped. Now they're the correct way. Alright? So I have a pretty simple object here. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to basically a mesh, a polygonal mesh. Alright? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this NURBS surface object and I'm going to go to modify, convert. Oh, I hit the wrong button there. Convert. I want to go to NURBS to polygons. Let's go to the options real quick. Make sure this is reset. Alright, let's see how this is going to work. With the default options here, I've reset this. This is using default options. It set the triangles and all that stuff. If I hit apply, it's going to create an object here that's a little bit too low res in the wrong places and high res in the wrong places. You can see it's a pretty nasty looking mesh. So let me undo. So let's play around with the settings here a little bit. What I'm going to do is instead of doing, I'm going to go with quads instead of triangles. And instead of doing a standard fit, let's go to general. And there's quite a few options you can choose, and you can experiment with those on your own time. Right now I'm going to go for general. And if I go ahead and I hit apply, it's going to create something like this, which doesn't work out too well. It's got geometry on the top, which I don't need. So what I'm going to do is for the V parameters, let me set that to 1. And for the number of U, I'm going to set this to I don't know, maybe 12. Let's try that. I'm going to hit apply, and it's going to do something like this. Now this looks more like what I want, except 12 is a little bit too low. So let me try something like 15 instead. And 15 actually looks pretty good. It's a low-res object. Remember, we don't want to get too crazy at the triangle count. Let me hit close on that. I'm going to take this object right now is actually controlling the low-res object. So if I were to take some of the vertices from this, you can see it controls the low-res object, which is actually a pretty good thing. But for the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this stuff and freeze modeling on it, basically. Delete history. I'm going to take the lofted object. I'm going to get rid of it. And the curve right here, I could keep the curve if I want to, so I'll probably just hide it for now. And what you might want to do is add some more geometry to this in specific areas. For example, up here, if we go to edge mode, you select that edge loop, you might want to take that and bevel this, just so you get a little bit more geometry. So add an extra segment, maybe offset it a little bit, just to make that look a little bit more curvy. Okay, so you want to make sure that certain areas, if they look too low res, up res them. Areas that are too high res, you want to down res those. So let me go to object mode here. Let me take this guy. Now what you can do is actually pretty simple. If we look at this from the top view, you can see that the object is perfectly straight, which doesn't look natural at all. So when the player looks at this in the game, and they look up at it like this, it's going to look weird because it's too straight. So what you might want to do here is you might want to go over here to, let's go over to animation, and over here we have the ability to create deformers, and we have a lattice deformer. I'm going to create a lattice deformer, and then I'm going to go to the options here, and I'm going to change some options around. Okay, so I'm going to maybe add a few subdivisions for the S. So maybe something like this looks pretty good. And then I'm going to take the lattice points, and let me go up to a top view, which is obviously going to help me work this a little bit better. And what I want to do is just add a little bit of variation to this, just so that this object doesn't look so unnatural. So a little bit of variation ends up going a long way. So that little bit of variation helps to make the object look more natural. So I'm going to take this object here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of it and move it over. I'll move it over just a bit like this. And then I'm going to go back to lattice, place another lattice deformer on this, add some subdivisions right there, take the lattice points, and start to move some of this stuff around like this. And I could take this guy over here, move him over a little bit, go back to my lattice deformer. So you can see it's a pretty simple, straightforward process or procedure. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So now you have these kind of hanging cables, and all you need to do is make some more copies if you wanted to. So if I wanted to take these, I can make some more copies, move them over, use lattice deformers and change the way that they look and stuff like that. Next thing you know, you have all these detailed kind of hanging cables that you can place on the ceiling of your environment and just make the environment look more natural. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video.